The Magicka Dragonknight has been one of the most important classes out there over the last 18 months, and this will continue to be the case moving forward. My goal over the next 15 minutes or so is to show you why. Hi, this is Liko and welcome to my Magicka Dragonknight PVE build and rotation video for the Flames of Ambition DLC. In this video, we are going to showcase two popular Magicka Dragonknight setups. With the help of Smex, we will show you a full damage build, and following this, I will showcase and discuss my recommended setup for using Zen's Redress, which is a popular support set that's often assigned to Magicka Dragonknight damage dealers. Smex, on his YouTube channel, Elements ESO, often posts builds and passes similar to what I do on my channel here, so do check him out. If you're looking forward to getting the juicy details on the Magicka Dragonknight, please do like the video and share your thoughts in the comments below, as it will help others find this content in the future. But quickly, I'll outline the fundamentals of the build, including choice of race, Mundus Stone and food. Feel free to skip ahead one chapter to the first setup if you feel comfortable here. Choice of race. So in the last couple of patches, Ultima, Dunmer and Khajiit have been the best choices for Magicka DPS, with a shout out to Breton for its extra sustain benefits. In this coming update, it is still largely the same, though Khajiit probably offers the best all-around package by a tiny amount thanks to its extra HP and recovery passives to go with its critical damage. Ultima, which has probably been the most popular Magicka class till now, is of course still right up there, and if your current character is an Ultima, you can quite happily stick with your choice if you don't fancy a race change. Dunmer is as always neck and neck with Ultima, so out of the three you literally can't go wrong. For the choice of Mundus Stone, in many cases for Magicka DPS, I'll recommend the Thief Mundus for extra crit chance. If you are using Mechanical Acuity, which briefly gives 100% crit chance, the effect of the Thief will be wasted during that time, so the Shadow Mundus Stone will most likely be the way to go in that case for the extra critical damage. Either way, your choice will depend on your exact build and setup, so out of these two, you really can't go wrong. For the choice of food, this will most likely depend on your level of sustain and your HP threshold that you're comfortable running with. If you could do with some extra sustain and you don't feel like you need extra HP, then the Ghastly Eyeball will be the way to go. If you're practicing on a target dummy, then I would also recommend selecting this food. If your sustain is decent but you need a bit of extra help with it and you need some HP as well, then I would recommend the Clockwork Citrus Fillet, which gives the best mixture of everything useful. If your sustain is good enough, you can go with a max HP, max Magicka food such as Artane Pickled Fishbowl. And yeah, I mean, this should give you the most DPS as long as you don't run out of resources. Note though that there are worse max HP, max Magicka foods out there. This one is the best one. Alright, so let's go. Setup 1. This is the full damage setup. Let's have a look at the gear. You can make variations of the full damage setup with different gear sets depending on the situation you're in. For a monster set, Zana is a great choice. Domi House is a good alternative in Sunspire. 2 pieces of crit chance, of which includes Slimecraw, will be another solid alternative. On the body, we will have 5 pieces of Mother Story, pretty universal set that you can use almost anywhere in honesty. Medusa is a great set that has similar features as well. The second 5-piece set is Siroria. Generally, this is the best all-around Magicka set out there. We are using dual wield daggers in this case. One has a known trait, make sure this is on your main hand. The other is a charge trait, which is really good for Magicka Dragonknight because it is really good for proccing extra burning and poison damage, thanks to the flame and poison enchants, which do get a boost thanks to the combustion passive of the Dragonknight. Precise is also a good alternative here. And yeah, in addition, Inferno Staves are still really good, so if you would prefer to use one of those instead, then do go ahead. On the back bar, we are using the Maelstrom Arena Staff, which is recommended to be part of any potential Magicka build. When it comes to the skills, firstly, do note that the skills used are the same in both setups. There is a slight difference though in bar setups, so go with whichever you prefer. Remember, this is the key difference. This bar setup that I'm about to show you is better for Molten Whip and Seething Fury stacks. The bar setup that is used in the second pass in my video is more suited to use Ulti-Gem potions. I'll also mention which skills are counting towards Zen stacks, which is only relevant to the second build of course. And yeah, apologies in advance if it's confusing, but hopefully if you stick it out with me and watch it through the whole way, it will make sense. So away we go. On the front bar we firstly have Burning Embers. It's a decent single target dot which counts towards Zen. It's guaranteed burning status effect proc upon hit, which is nice since that also counts towards Zen as well, the burning. There is also a pretty strong heal, but that's not usually super relevant in 12-person raids. Next we have Molten Whip. This is our spammable and it does pretty good direct damage. This skill grants access to the Seething Fury passive. Casting any of the flame skills on this bar will count towards a Seething Fury proc. and when you use the whip, with the increasing number of stacks active, the more damage it does, with the caveat of course that it resets the stack counter back to 0. The other morph, Flame Lash, is also pretty good. It's a really good option if you need that extra sustain. If you watch my Magicka Dragonknight video from Mark Half, you'll see that in action along with the usage of Acuity. Engulfing Flames is a special ability that grants up to 10% flame damage to everyone on your team. To the enemies that you cast this on. As a damage dealer in 12-person trials, this bonus should always be at the maximum of 10%, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Engulfing Flames has a fairly strong direct damage AoE portion and also leaves behind a single target dot which counts towards a Zen stack. Flames of Oblivion is a skill that spits fireballs every 5 seconds, pretty strong, and also grants Major Prophecy and Savagery, which is a whole lot of crit chance, and therefore a key reason why this skill is on the back bar of the second setup. Inner Light also grants Major Prophecy as well as Max Magicka, a little Magicka regen thanks to the Major Skill passive. Don't actively cast this skill though, it's just sitting there nice and pretty on your bar for the passives. Meteor is a front bar ultimate, and it should be generally only used if you cannot use a Standard Might, which is our back bar ultimate. This is one of the coolest ultimates in the game. Situate your character inside it and do 15% more damage to enemies that share the space with you, and also take 15% less. Extremely powerful, but if you want something a bit more bursty, then I would also recommend using Fiery Rage, the Destro Staff ultimate, instead. Furthermore, on a back bar we have Scalding Rune, which has a nice upfront burst damage after 2 seconds, and then a single target dot, which lasts a reasonable amount of time, also counting towards Zen. We have Unstable Wall, which is a decent ground AoE, a weakish dot, but a strong explosion at the end. This will still go off if the skill is recast early, so feel free to do so if it makes sense. Enemies in your wall will take a lot more light attack damage thanks to the Maelstrom Staff effect, so ideally we want this skill to always be down. Barbed Trap is a stamina casting dot. It counts towards Zen as well and gives minor force. You can't really ask for more. Degeneration is a cheap single target dot that also counts towards Zen. It also provides major sorcery, which is important on the second build as we will need this to be our source of extra spell damage when practicing on the dummy. This is slotted on the back bar in setup 1 and on the front bar in setup 2. In a raid situation, you can probably drop this skill for Mystic Orb, which we don't use here because it's too expensive. We should also be able to get the maximum stacks of Zen's Redress bonus without this skill. Eruption is a final skill, a ground AoE that lasts forever and does decent damage. It's rather expensive though, which does bounce things out. Awesome, hopefully all of that made sense. If not, do feel free to leave a question in the comments below. The Magicka Dragonknight rotation is one of the most fun out there in my opinion, also aesthetically very cool animations. As with most other rotations in the game, the general aim is to keep up your dots and AoEs whilst hitting spammables in the meantime whilst all your dots are up. It's no different here, except that generally Magicka Dragonknight has more dots. Actually, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true anymore with Magicka Necromancers and Wardens doing well with these types of dot rotations as well. Anyway, Burning Embers and Engulfing Flames are both 14 seconds long each, therefore it does make sense to cast them together for simplicity. Engulfing Flames is especially important if your whole raid group is relying on you to maintain a good uptime for it, for that bonus fire damage. Flames of Oblivion is slightly longer at 15 seconds. Generally though, you do not want to recast this skill early since it only takes every 5 seconds. Imagine recasting after 4 seconds, that's a huge waste. Degeneration and Scalding Rune, Barbed Trap and Eruption should be recast simply whenever they run out, and only if you have nothing else to refresh should you cast a whip. One exception to this rule is when your Seething Fury stacks are about to run out. In these cases you can refresh the buff early if suitable, if not, utilize a stronger whip. Another exception is when you know you won't get the full value of a dot duration, such as when the fight is close to being over. If none of this really makes sense, or if you want something more digestible, there is a static rotation in the description below this video, and that easily summarizes a way to do good damage without overcomplicating things, or thinking dynamically so to speak. Anyway, coming up is a look at the CMX for this pass, where I'll show you the blue CP Slottables as well. After that, I will discuss the second setup, which is the support setups with Zen's Redress, and I'm hoping to share some interesting and useful bits of info there and then, so do make sure to hit me out there. Anyway, enjoy the rest of this pass, and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Cool, so let's take a look. Molten Whip hits pretty hard since we're able to cast it a lot. A number of the mag decay dot durations are really long, longer than average. The amount of burning DPS is something that's fairly unique to mag decay as well, with the charged traitor dagger contributing to slightly higher burning uptime, as well as poisoned, which isn't insignificant. You can see as we scroll down here how all the different damage components simply add up to the 96k total. The blue CP Slottables then are fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge and Backstabber in Sunspire, and in other situations where flanking the enemy isn't consistent, you'll want to replace Backstabber with another choice of Slottable. Okay, so moving on to setup 2, and this is the popular mag DK setup with Zens. For those of you who are not aware of the set, basically you can allow affected enemies to take up to 5% extra damage, 1% for each qualifying dot applied to them, up to a maximum of 5. Many of you will probably be wondering which set would be the best to pair it with, and my answer is Mother's Sorrow. The other sets combined with this are exactly the same as in the first pass. Elfbane was a very popular pairing in previous patches, but here, even with the Thief Mundus, there is a glaring lack of crit chance, but also the 2 heavy pieces. You can still make it work, however, if you do prefer the Elfbane rotation. I think with Zen Elfbane we were sitting on like 52% crit chance even with 2 daggers and the Thief Mundus, which is really low. I must be doing something wrong. Siroria would also be a decent bet as well, since at least you'd get the extra 2 light pieces, which will help since each light piece now does contribute to crit chance. Skill wise they are the same except for the slight differences in bar setup, and I mentioned this earlier whilst going through them all, so do feel free to go back to that section to double check. So onto the pass. Firstly, you can use the same rotation as described in the description below. With Zen, there should be more of a focus for the benefit of your teammates to keep up the dots. So you'll notice I'm more inclined here to refresh dots early if there is a clash. So yeah, if there are multiple dots running out at the same time, then my preference here would be to refresh the shortest one first. Otherwise you'll end up running into the situation of all your dots clashing again next time round. In terms of dot priority, I guess Engulfing Flames would be the first since it has the other group benefit, and pairing that with Burning Embers still makes sense here. In a raid, you might consider dropping Degeneration for Orb since it will be more effective. Even so, you'll have 5 Zen skills running most of the time, with Engulfing Flames as 1, Burning Embers as a 2nd, Barb Trap and Scalding Rune as the 3rd and 4th, with the Burning Status counting as the 5th. And that should also have a very high uptime, which we'll double check later on in the CMX. You'll also have the Poison Status effect, which counts, and that can fill a few gaps if you're lucky, but it's not a particularly high uptime, so I wouldn't count on it. Although if you use a charged weapon, then yeah, I mean, it can help slightly more, I guess. All in all, I do 91k DPS here, or technically just short, and that's about right. 5% or so behind a full damage setup with loss of Siroria. I'll leave you guys to enjoy this pass and to see how I got there, and I'll catch up with you as soon as I'm done with it. Okay, cool. So as you will see, I have a pretty decent uptime of my 5 dots plus burning. Not quite sure actually what happened to Scalding Rune. Maybe I missed the cast or something, since it tends to be a little clunky at times to use. Burning status effect really helps us out here, as you can see right at the top with 98% uptime. I don't think anyone can complain if you can achieve these sort of uptimes in the raid, mind you, though I suppose there is always room for improvement. You'll also notice here that I'm running a newer version of Combat Metrics, which includes an elegant new interface for the new CPs. Really well done to the developer there. And these clearly show my chosen slottables of Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge and Backstabber. Anyway, thanks to Smex for helping me out here. Thanks to you guys viewing this video for spending your time with me. I hope you have fun with the Magicka Dragonknight in the Flames of Ambition DLC. This is Liko, stay healthy and have a nice day. See you next time.